What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, April 10th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:09 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from all over the world. So late last night, we had a high priority nuclear code transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces. This code is known as the Foxtrot message, and this is basically one of the highest priority messages sent out to our nuclear forces from U.S. Strategic Command. And it was sent out by this plane right here that you see. This is a Boeing E-6B Mercury, and it had the call sign Volv 55, and it was actually flying with all of its flight information kept private, which is something new that they've been doing the last couple of weeks. I don't know if this is a new directive from the latest president, but we'll have to wait and see what happens, because this is very, very serious. Okay, Foxtrot messages are extremely rare, and they're messages that are encrypted and sent out to our submerged nuclear-armed submarines, okay? So this plane was looping off the coast of Northern California, sending out Foxtrot messages to our submerged nuclear-armed submarines, the highest priority nuclear codes, with the exception of the emergency war order, which is the actual order to launch the nukes. And I want to confirm to you guys that the second aircraft carrier that was supposed to go to the Middle East, the USS Carl Vinson, has now officially arrived in the Middle East. This is being reported by the U.S. Central Command. They posted this on X, and they wrote here, aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson CVN-70 with its air wing consisting of F-35 C Lightning IIs works alongside the USS Harry Truman CVN-75 in the U.S. Central Command area of responsibility, and they attach this video clip here of them doing training with the Harry Truman in the Middle East. Okay, so they're basically warming up. They're in the dugout, okay, and they're getting ready to go up to bat. All right, so this is very, very serious. And the New York Times, citing congressional sources, reported that the Pentagon may need to transfer additional weapons from the Asia-Pacific region to the Middle East, and we've been seeing that over the last couple of weeks. And senior U.S. military officials arrived in Tel Aviv yesterday for high-level consultations. And the U.S. president announced a 90-day pause on all tariffs yesterday, with the exception of China, and he's going to raise the tariffs on China up to 145%. And today the markets crashed on Wall Street. The Dow Jones dropped as much as 2,000 points at one time. And last night we had a massive movement of aerial refuelers to the Strait of Gibraltar area, to Lodges Field in particular, which is a U.S. military airbase in the Azores. And the reason why this is concerning is during the culinary night, for those of you guys who were there for that, this is exactly what the U.S. did. They moved a bunch of aerial refuelers to the Straits of Gibraltar to meet bombers that were coming over the Atlantic. But these aerial refuelers went to Lodges Airfield, and one of them with the call sign Blue 51 is associated with the B-1 Lancers, okay? And that one actually went to the north towards the UK and disappeared from the flight tracker. So we have aerial refuelers that are used by our bombers going to Lodges Field last night. 6 of them I counted. Okay, here you can see also a German Air Force refueler going to Lodges as well. So it looks like the Germans are going to be potentially involved in these strikes on Iran. So we're massing aerial refuelers in Lodges Field in the Azores, which will be used to refuel the bombers coming over the Atlantic when they strike Iran. Okay, they're pre-positioning the assets. And here you can see two KC-135 aerial refuelers that went from New Hampshire to Lodges Field, so a total of 6 aerial refuelers, 5 American and 1 German, went to Lodges Field last night, which is very rare. We also have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert over the continental United States this afternoon, and U.S. strategic forces. There was also a Skybird message this afternoon, just about an hour and a half ago. And the Skybird message is also high priority. It's very similar to a Skymaster or Sky King or Foxtrot, except the Skybird is more of a tactical message that's sent from an actual tactical unit like a bomber. So our nuclear forces are on high alert. We know that this Saturday, the U.S. presidential administration will be meeting with the Iranians in Oman. So we'll see what happens, but it's all going down on the first day of Passover and on the full moon. So that is really weird. But here you can see a U.S. missile detector plane airborne over North Dakota right now. A U.S. nuke sniffer that was flying over the Central Plains. We also had a high priority reconnaissance plane flying over the southeastern U.S. that was looking down towards the Gulf of America, which is very concerning. And this high priority reconnaissance plane sends intelligence directly to the president and the Joint Chiefs, and it was flying from Texas all the way to South Carolina, and then it went back. And these planes have side-looking radars, so that means it was either looking towards the Gulf of America or up towards Canada or both. Now, in addition to that, we also have a U.S. rivet joint reconnaissance plane in the Gulf of America right now, and it's looking down towards the Bay of Campeche and the Yucatan. So it looks like for some reason our strategic forces, our strategic reconnaissance forces, are keeping an eye on the Gulf of America this afternoon. And I don't know if that's related to the threats from Iran. They threatened to strike us from the Gulf of America, so now we're sending all these recon planes. Okay, here you can see the RC-135 and the combat scent, all right, looking down into the Gulf of America. So it's very possible that Iran could strike us with the container ships that they have with missiles, okay, the Club K system. They've posted numerous videos of them testing these missiles, and basically these are intermediate range ballistic missiles and cruise missiles that are hidden inside of shipping containers. So they can put all these missiles on a container ship, and then they can park them in the Gulf of America and just launch, hundreds of missiles into Texas, Louisiana, Florida, okay, the entire Gulf Coast with those container missiles. Very, very concerning. And I want to remind you guys that we have no air defenses protecting us in the Gulf of America. We don't have Patriot missiles here. We don't have THAAD systems here. Okay, it's not like Ukraine or Israel or South Korea where we have all these advanced air defense systems operating Europe. Okay, we don't have anything to protect our coastlines, including the Gulf of America, so we're wide open. And another interesting thing is this afternoon we had a U.S. B-52 nuclear bomber fly from Barksdale to March Air Force Base for some reason. And it seems to me like they're going to send that B-52 overseas, maybe over the Pacific. So they're moving it to March before it goes over the Pacific. Then we had another B-52 flying over Louisiana, took off from Barksdale, was flying over the Ozarks. So our nuclear forces are on very, very high alert, okay? We also had several P-8 Poseidon sub-hunters off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic this afternoon. Here you can see 2 of them off the coast of Virginia Beach, and then one off the coast of New Jersey and Long Island near the Hudson Canyon. So some kind of submarine is lurking over here, and we have 3 P-8s patrolling this area. Very, very concerning and very, very unusual. And here you can better see the Cobra Ball over North Dakota, the Nuke Sniffer over Kansas, and then we also had a U.S. government or U.S. military VIP plane that was returning from Colorado Springs, which is where Cheyenne Mountain is located. So potentially a VIP was dropped off at the Doomsday Bunker in Colorado Springs, where NORAD is located. Okay, North American Aerospace Defense. Cheyenne Mountain is a massive Doomsday Bunker. And what you're looking at here is the flight path of a C-5 Galaxy that was returning from Diego Garcia to South Korea. So some kind of weapons or equipment was moved from South Korea to Diego Garcia on a C-5. Now, C-5 Galaxies are the heaviest U.S. military transport plane. Okay, they can carry the most stuff out of any U.S. military transport plane. So whatever they were moving was heavy, or there was a lot of it. We continue to see a lot of U.S. military transport planes going down to Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Here you can see last night we had at least 4 C-17s and a C-5, and that's just one snapshot, okay, while I was monitoring. It's very possible that there were a lot more than this. And then this was also last night, several more of these C-17s and C-5s. And then this was the day before. You can see half a dozen C-17s here going down to Qatar. And then this was 2 days ago, more C-17s. Okay, so probably over 200 or 300 C-17s have went to Qatar and Saudi Arabia. That is absolutely insane. Okay, a massive movement of equipment to the Middle East. And according to Israeli sources, the U.S. president has given the Israeli president more time to continue fighting in Gaza, but not for long. Apparently, the U.S. president is expected to ask the Israeli president to end the war in Gaza soon, and that the U.S. presidential administration is working behind the scenes on a deal to release the captives and end the Gaza war. So they're working on another deal with Hamas, okay? And North Korea plans to send thousands of short-range ballistic missiles to Russia, according to the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command commander. These missiles are known to be highly inaccurate and could hit civilian targets. And the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East and Ukraine sent messages to Iran urging direct talks in Oman. An administration official said the Special Envoy won't fly to Oman if the talks are not direct. And the State Department spokesperson confirmed that the Special Envoy would be present at talks in Oman on Saturday. And Israeli Channel 13, quoting an Israeli official, said that the Israeli president asked the U.S. president to dismantle all Iranian uranium enrichment facilities when he visited the U.S. earlier this week. And the Times is reporting that Iran has transferred long-range missiles to its proxy forces in Iraq for the first time. The Quds 351 cruise missile and the Jamal 69 ballistic missiles were also smuggled. And Ukraine's army chief Oleksandr Syrsky confirmed the start of Russia's offensive in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions of Ukraine. So Russia is starting a new push in Sumy and Kharkiv. And the European Union has approved retaliatory tariffs on approximately $23 billion worth of American goods that will be effective from April the 15th. These tariffs, ranging from between 10% and 25%, target a variety of U.S. products, including soybeans, motorcycles, and orange juice. And China has now issued a travel warning for Chinese tourists traveling to the U.S., and China's top leaders will hold meetings to discuss measures to boost their economy after the U.S. tariffs. And there was a Keystone Pipeline oil spill near Edinburgh, North Dakota 2 days ago. The pipeline ruptured near this town, and this has me wondering if this wasn't the work of some kind of a sleeper cell, maybe an Iranian sleeper cell, okay, because I've never heard of this pipeline rupturing. So that's very concerning, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that if we do strike Iran. And the U.S. presidential administration is in the early stages of considering drone strikes on drug cartels in Mexico. So that is absolutely huge news. Discussions have included targeting cartel leaders and logistics networks with potential cooperation from the Mexican government. These considerations are part of a broader counter-narcotics plan, but no final decisions have been made. Didn't I tell you guys? I told you that it was just a matter of time before the U.S. sent forces into Mexico, whether it would be drones, whether it would be special forces, ground forces. Okay, they're moving a whole bunch of armored vehicles to the border of Mexico, brigade combat teams with Stryker vehicles, okay, and airborne forces. And so it's going to start with the drone strikes, but then it's going to go into ground forces. It's going to go into special operations raids. And then eventually it's going to go into the brigade combat teams going in on the ground and setting up a buffer zone with Mexico. But I think that's why we saw that RC-135 in the Gulf of America this afternoon. It's probably picking out targets for the drones, okay? And there's already drones flying over Mexico right now. So this is absolutely huge news. And the Pentagon is reportedly considering withdrawing up to 10,000 U.S. troops from Eastern Europe. This was reported by NBC News. The U.S. is considering a proposal to reduce troop levels in Poland and Romania as the U.S. president seeks a ceasefire with the Russian president. And Ukraine captured 2 Chinese soldiers in eastern Ukraine after fighting them. According to Zelensky, Zelensky said that he ordered Ukrainian officials to obtain an explanation from China regarding Chinese soldiers fighting in Ukraine. Okay, and he also said he expects a U.S. reaction to this. So Chinese soldiers are now fighting in Ukraine, guys. Ukraine is becoming a testing ground, a proving ground for all of the major powers. They're sending their equipment, they're sending their soldiers to see how well the equipment works against their enemies, okay? Because you have a very unique situation where you have Ukraine fighting against Russia. Ukraine is using all of NATO's weapons. Most of the weapons that Ukraine is using are NATO weapons. So obviously the Chinese, the North Koreans, the Russians want to know how good their troops can fight against NATO weapons and how good their weapons are against NATO weapons, okay? So this is very, very serious, okay? Chinese soldiers are now in Ukraine, okay? And the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky offered to buy $50 billion worth of U.S. military aid. He said that they handed over to the American side a large list of weapons that they want to buy. So that is very, very interesting. And the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky confirmed that negotiations on the rare earth minerals agreement will be held in Washington on April 11th to the 12th. So they're going to renegotiate this minerals agreement. And the Russian military said that they intercepted 158 drones across Crimea and several Russian regions 2 nights ago, and apparently a Russian military airfield was targeted. And the Israeli Broadcasting Authority reported that the Israeli president's visit to Washington ended abruptly. So apparently the Israeli president was going to stay longer, but he left sooner because he was disappointed to hear that the U.S. was considering talks with Iran. And China is now reportedly considering significantly increasing tariffs on U.S. agricultural products. And the U.S. president says he might keep tariffs on Israel because the U.S. already gives them billions every year. And the Israeli Hayom, citing political sources, reported that Israel was not aware in advance of the agreement between the U.S. president and the Iranians regarding negotiations between the two parties. So Israel was not made aware that they were going to talk on Saturday. And so when the Israeli president showed up, he was completely blindsided. And the U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, while in Panama, signed a joint memorandum with Panama that states that U.S. warships will be allowed to sail first and free through the Panama Canal. In addition, the U.S. will provide cybersecurity assistance to Panama and send the USNS Comfort to Panama to assist with medical needs. And Pentagon officials told their allied counterparts and lawmakers and aides in closed-door briefings this week that the U.S. military had achieved only limited success in destroying the Houthis' massive arsenal of missiles and drones. And reportedly, they've already spent $1 billion on these strikes, and they've been using some of our most important bombers, the stealth bombers, which are already on the old side. Okay, and they're racking up the mileage on those, and they're sitting out in the tropical sun, baking in the UV rays as we speak. And American heavy airstrikes were reported in Yemen yesterday. Apparently, the U.S. targeted missile storage warehouses. As many as 10 airstrikes were reported yesterday. So that's the latest breaking news that I have. Before I go, I want to just show you guys some activity over Eastern Europe. Last night we had a ton of reconnaissance over the Baltics and Poland. You can see here a lot of reconnaissance over Estonia. There were 2 Estonian Air Force planes patrolling the Estonian border with Russia and the Gulf of Finland. There was also a U.S. private recon plane flying in Estonia. Then we had another U.S. private recon plane flying around Kaliningrad. We had a Swedish reconnaissance plane patrolling northern Poland. Then we had a U.S. Air Force aerial refueler in Poland for some reason. So a massive amount of reconnaissance. And then we also have this U.S. Air Force RQ-4 Global Hawk patrolling northern Poland right now. So the threat to Poland and the Baltics is very, very high. We know that Russia is in the process of drafting 160,000 troops that are going to go to the border of Poland and the Baltics, okay? So potentially there could be an invasion this fall as soon as September, and we know that the Europeans are going to be deploying as many as 800,000 troops into Eastern Europe for some kind of an exercise in September at the same time as Russia and Belarus are going to be doing their so-called exercises. So it could all go down very, very soon in Eastern Europe. And interestingly, last night we had a U.S. AWACS plane flying in the Sea of Japan, keeping an eye on this area here just to the east of the Korean Peninsula. Now, this is an area where North Korea launches missiles into, so potentially North Korea could be getting ready to do another missile test, and that could be why one of those combat scents went over the Pacific earlier this afternoon, okay? Maybe they're going to do some kind of a test here. We also had a U.S. Navy recon drone, an MQ-4, just south of Taiwan, and then we had a Chinese recon plane patrolling the coast of the Taiwan Strait. And then finally, I wanted to show you this new video footage showing the U.S. Army moving as many as 50 strikers to the border of Mexico. This is absolutely insane. A massive buildup here, okay, on the border with Mexico. So I'm telling you guys, it's just a matter of time before we see drone strikes. Then it's going to progress to special operations raids. And then I think we're going to see a full-on ground invasion into Mexico, especially the northern part, to create a buffer zone. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight in the live stream to provide live coverage, but it does look like U.S. nuclear forces are on very high alert. They're at maximum readiness for some reason. We had the Foxtrot message last night. We had a Skybird message this afternoon. We have multiple strategic aircraft in the air, nuke sniffers, high priority reconnaissance planes, missile detecting planes, okay? So it could all go down any time now. Even though they're supposed to talk on Saturday, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I'm going to continue to monitor the situation, and I will be live later on tonight. Follow me on Telegram and X. I post all my updates over there. Also consider downloading my app for free from the Google Play Store, and it's also available for iPhone now. The link is in the description below this video. And also consider joining my Patreon. It's just $3 a month and you get access to all these emergency updates with no advertisements. So check it out, patreon.com/NYPrepper. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.